Instead of simply reading the patch notes like many other YouTubers might do, I wanted to bring you a more active video where I explain all the patch changes and what's new in the new Keepers of the Stone DLC. And in case you are not convinced to give up a couple minutes of your life to a small YouTuber like me, just to give an example of what this video might be about. So as you can see, the Harpies used to have biscuits and pie, and now they have paste and boots. Well, what was awesome about the Harpies, admittedly, it's like an open secret in the community that Harpies were a difficult race, but they had some awesome needs where they could triple dip on food items, for instance. If you had humans, beavers, and Harpies, you could just create biscuits. If you had humans, lizards, and Harpies, you could do pies. And with something like Sahilda's cookbook, you could satisfy Harpies until the end of the game. Well, now Harpies not only have, admittedly, probably one of the worst food items in the game. The jerky that they consume can no longer be created in the field kitchen. You can either instead create skewers and paste, and coats are far more difficult to craft nowadays as well. So very quickly before we continue the video, like it if you did, comment frogs so more people get to see it. Subscribe for more Against the Storm content. I also have other game guides on my main channel, as you can see behind me. And also I have a series where I create like zoo, park, stuff like that. I have a side channel, Two-Siders Against the Storm, where I upload unedited gameplay videos. The most recent ones are with the frogs and the new coastal biome. So don't worry, we'll return to our Harpy friends and all the new stuff soon. If you are reading the patch notes with me, or you didn't find all the stuff that I'm talking about here in the patch notes, don't look at the Steam patch notes guide. Go on Eremite Games website instead, which has all the changes. Many people in the Against the Storm subreddit are asking if the game and indeed the DLC are worth it. And make no mistake, it's an overpriced DLC. I mean, it costs almost as much as the base game does right now with 50% off. And in some countries like Poland, it's actually more expensive to buy the DLC than the base game. And the DLC doesn't offer that much. It's overpriced, like I said. However, the reason why we don't really mind or care about that in the community is because the base game itself is probably worth more than 60 euros anyways. I myself have played it for 130 hours so far. I made multiple videos on it, and I know someone who has downloaded the game illegally at first, but they wanted to support the developer, and then they just bought it because they wanted to do that. I would say buy the base game right now, 50% off. Wait like 20-30 hours until you get the DLC to see if you like the base game or not. The DLC stuff, the frogs and the coastal grove biome are kind of difficult, so just wait a little bit with the DLC. The DLC brings a new coastal grove biome. If you don't see it on your map, you need to end the cycle, unfortunately. And very interesting fact, I didn't know that, but Royal Woodlands is the most prevalent biome in the game. I kind of felt it, but I didn't know. Now, in the new changes, Royal Woodlands, you should see it a bit less often, but still more often than the other biomes. I don't really like that personally, because I feel like the game is very farming-centric, you know, fertile soil and stuff. And I kind of wish that the new coastal grove biome had like fewer amount of fertile soil, maybe get buffs to gathering like the marshlands. And again, with the Royal Woodlands being so prevalent, I just always, like 90% of the time, I bring a farm building to a map and it kind of feels a little bit boring. The new coastal grove biome is the most difficult biome in the game. It's a crescent shape because you can send out like expeditions in the very middle of it. And indeed, the niche of this biome is that you get 5 fewer building blueprints from reputation. It doesn't look that different to me. Maybe it's just because I'm playing on Viceroy difficulty. But you need to make up... go away, Two-Siders. You need to make up for the lost building blueprints by sending out expeditions at this Strider port. And you can select what kind of building blueprint you want. You will only get a building blueprint every 2 expeditions, but you can get 8 of them, so you can make up the 5 pretty easily, but then again you need to send out like 16 expeditions to get the full amount. You can increase the requirements of the expedition, which will increase the Strider and crew food cost, but as you can see, it will also increase the chance of better rewards. Fishing is a new resource gathering, well, resource and camp, and this map actually has all 3 fishing resources in it. Fishing is kind of a combination between food gathering and non-food gathering and geysers, there are 3 different colors of fishing ponds you can find in glades. So it's kind of like the geysers, but only it's not connected to seasons or anything. It's just a cool game design color, I guess. And you get a new camp, the small fishing hut, or you can just click on the camp and click here. I learned that. Also, you can assign builders even before a building is done. So they will start building this building and start to work there afterwards. Fishing camp, again, not really food gathering, because 2 out of the 3 possible fishing ponds don't contain food. So from a blue one, you can get fish, no raw food. From a green one, you can get algae. I just learned how to pronounce that probably really badly. And we didn't find one, but from the yellow pond, you can get fish scales as well. It's a brand new type of gathering building because it's something I call the delayed reward gathering, I guess, because as workers will start gathering this fish up, they will not bring back the fish to the warehouse until all 60 charges in this case are depleted from the pond. So you will get a lot of fish and a lot of resources from the other ponds as well, but you need to wait a lot of time to get them. So it's delayed. You can click on the pond and then click on retrieve nets, but that will destroy the pond as well. So as you can see, it's interesting. It's kind of difficult to know whether you should retrieve the nets or not. Frogs are the new species indeed in the DLC, and they are very middle of the pack. I'm not sure if this makes any sense to you, but you know, you have lizards, foxes, and harpies at the bottom with like small requirements, and you have beavers and humans at the top with major requirements. Frogs are kind of in the middle, except... Oh, go away, two-siders. Except they take the longest breaks. Now, I'm not sure what this is. I guess this is 2.3 seconds or something like that. In which case, it doesn't really matter if it's 1.4 or 2.3, I guess. Maybe in the grand scheme of things it does. But yeah, frogs, middle of the pack. They take the longest breaks, though. A quirk of the frogs is that, unlike all the other races, they don't have a basic housing need. Now, despite seeming positive or negative to you, it's kind of a negative because you didn't really get a resolve dip because you didn't have basic houses. You could only really get a resolve buff, and frogs don't really get that. Also, in a recent game that I had, if you want to increase the neighborhood level or shelters or whatever, now you can no longer do that just by spamming shelters, and this just keep in mind because... Hang on, go away, two-siders. So the neighborhood level order, I just missed out on that because I forgot that frogs needed the brick houses. And yes, they only have species-specific housing, and bricks just got much, much more important because of that. Frogs have a proficiency towards masonry, so brick stuff. And finally, we have a stonecutter camp go to race to gather that stuff up. It's really difficult to satisfy frogs, and the frog houses can be upgraded multiple times, not just once like the other species-specific housing. It's also kind of a late-game stuff that you unlock in the Citadel, and to be honest with you, I haven't upgraded any houses yet, even at this point in my games. And it seems like you really need this. You get a bunch of different buffs, like, you know, resolve buffs. It's similar to the rainwater stuff that you get in buildings, global production speed, additional villagers can be housed. And indeed, pack of building materials are... You can use these now to upgrade frog houses. And pack of crops you can use to increase the chance of fishing rewards. So it's similar to the trade routes where you can use provisions to send out trade routes. Now you can use the other stuff to get other benefits. Frogs also stole the rainwater specialization from foxes, and foxes got just like a blight rod specialization. It doesn't really matter. It's basically just a different name. A bunch of buildings lost their rainwater specialization, And it really seems like the developers want you to have, you know, rainwater, collect that, blight rot, whatever, in every game, because, of course, the rainwater specialization works with the water collecting buildings. There are still some, I cannot show you because you cannot search for it, but there are still some buildings that use the rainwater specialization. A bunch of them just kind of lost it though, and gained blight rot instead. Harpies also got shafted in another way, because they used to have this awesome, you know, technically global production speed related carrying capacity Harp ability. Well, the frog one is now that you get newcomers twice as fast. So especially if you combine it with the cornerstone Stonewalker tax, you will get 30 Ember every year because you just have a frog firekeeper. Not to mention the amazing resource, which is the villagers themselves, and it's kind of indirectly or directly buffed the newcomer cornerstones, which I would never have picked otherwise. So it's hard to say if the frog firekeepers are better than the harpies, but they are awesome nonetheless. Also, you would be forgiven if you didn't know this, because they just added this species buildings part to the encyclopedia, but there were already species-specific buildings in the game. So for instance, if you were looking for a brewery before, when you had beavers but didn't have humans, you just couldn't find it. You literally couldn't find brewery without humans, and you cannot find, you know, the leather worker without lizards, and frogs got a couple of buildings moved to them, a couple of the new buildings or the forum. And as you can see, some buildings received a visual update to reflect the frog's design. Now, one of the, if not the most important change that you will hear in this video is that all the needs received or receive a buff if you satisfy them. So you get a 5% extra chance to produce double yields, and I kind of wish it had the percentages here, developers. For every food satisfied, you get a 5% chance for double yields. For every service, it's 10% double yields. And the new clothing items also give a buff. So each race has a clothing need now. Foxes, frogs, and lizards, so the not really human-like ones, get the boots, whereas humans, beavers, and harpies get the coats. However, and it's kind of a buff to harpies. Harpies get double dip on you know, they can wear both boots and coats. The coat one is that you get a free plus resolve in the storm season if the species is wearing coats. So you kind of mitigate like one level of hostility, right? Because you get -4 with one level of hostility. Not really major. The other one is much more important, I think, because boots increase movement speed by 15%. And I kind of feel like this is better than the coats, but more difficult races wear boots, kind of. Not really. I don't know. So like we talked about with the harpies, needs were also reshuffled. Humans and beavers are unchanged, okay? But lizards just lost religion. It's kind of funny. I kind of wish I didn't make the beginner guide now, because everybody will I said there that lizards have religion. Now they don't. They have boots instead, as you do. And what's super interesting, guys, is that now all the services, each service only satisfies 2 species, except the best service became religion, because religion is the only service right now in the game that can satisfy 3 different species at the same time. Thematically, I don't know how to pronounce that word, but lizards are the foodie race because they have 4 food needs, and you know, you can get the 5% double production bonus easily with these. Harpies are the double clothing race, and frogs are the sort of needy. They need special housing and upgrade the special housing, and they also require free services, unlike the other races. The early game, whatever, bonus ability of frogs is that they can see salvageable buildings in undiscovered glades, which is actually awesome. And this buffs the Explorer's Lodge. I'm not really sure why it didn't receive the frog redesign. This building should have received that. However, I still feel like it's a really bad building because you can never really make sure that you get salvage. You never really salvage enough buildings, and it's kind of random. But frogs help out a little bit. At least you can get, 1 point of reputation, I guess, with frogs and this Explorer's Lodge buff. Now, when it comes to the new needs, the paste and boots, and also leather kind of ties into it because you need leather to create boots. Though you can now leather you can just use scales instead of leather. Leather is or was a really bad resource to gather and craft with, because the only way to craft, and by the way, food-based items as well, like paste is a food-based item. The only way to get leather and meat and eggs consistently is to get a wrench. But just like in real life, you need to farm a bunch of vegetables or whatnot to create meat. Like in real life, to get 1 kilogram of meat, you need 8 times as much, 8 kilograms of whatever grain. And the only way to make wrench work, in my experience at least, is to already you already need to win really hard in the game and get a bunch of hundreds of grain. I don't really know if now it's a little bit better. Leather you can no longer farm using the plant fiber, as you can see. But then again, you can supplement it with algae, and if you don't collect the algae pawns early, you will get a lot of algae. Look, I want to pronounce it as algae, but Google Translate told me not to. So yeah, harpies only have meat and leather related stuff. And by the way, coats now also require leather. Sorry, not coats. I wanted to say fabric. You can no longer create fabric from leather, but it has been changed to algae. So leather is just really bad now, even worse than it was before. Not really, because really, really cool change. Now, I cannot show you an example, but on multiple maps, not on this one, you can find a leather resource node, which is actually the chitin exoskeleton of this big thing. You can find leather resource nodes, as creepy as that sounds, out in the wild, food and stone. And you can collect from it using the harvester building, which is a little bit better than the trapper camp, because everybody already comes with a big harvester camp. And as you can see in the description of it, now it can collect leather, which is an awesome change. I really like that. Still not consistent though. Wrench is still really bad, I think. But I guess it's gonna be a little bit more easy to create water skins, probably the worst container right now with these changes. Like I said, leather can also be supplemented with scales, which is an awesome change. We basically just have 2 leather now. So that's also it's a new thing, scales, but it's basically a leather buff, okay? But finally, meat also got another buff, technically, because this awesome, one of my favorite service buildings, the clan hall that increases, doubles production in gathering camps, now has another buff, which will give more resolve when your villagers eat meat-based complex food. So again, you can see jerky, skewers, spice, and paste. So at least we have that. Going back to the paste and the coats discussion, it really sucks to create paste because again, it's meat-based, and now you need to pick up a separate building. I'm glad that they buffed pigment, which is now called dye. It's just that I'm not sure if this is enough, right? At least you can create it from not just insect stuff, you can farm berries. Sometimes you can get a lot of coal and copper. It's just still a little bit weird. And when it comes to coats that only used to require fabric, now it also requires dye, which kind of sucks, but it's much faster to create coats now, at least. Also, they little bit buffed resin. Resin used to be something that you only really farmed when you wanted something like, tea or crystallized dew. But the reason why I don't like that crystallized dew can be created from resin is because if you have a forester's hut, you can already create crystallized dew. So resin was kind of a black, or whatever it's called, not a black child, but I'm sorry, that's how we say it in my language, okay? We didn't really use resin. Now there are more ways to get it and more uses for it, namely coats. And also the clay pit can create it. Now the reason why I really don't like this change, even though I like that they buffed resin, it's hard to explain, but it's kind of hypocritical of me to say this, making this video and all, but I don't like min-maxing in games, and this is why I don't really check like Prestige 20 guides in Against the Storm, because I don't really want to like spoil myself. I accidentally spoiled myself the other day because I saw that clay pit was like the most amazing building in the entire game according to the community, and I've been catching myself, like hating myself for not picking the clay pit all the time. Well, believe it or not, they buffed the clay pit 4 times actually, because not only can it now create resin, I think it takes maybe like half as much water as well, which is an insane buff. And you can, it doesn't say, but you can equip it with a rain engine now. And the fourth, kind of a small change, is that I'm not sure if you noticed this, but some games I only got drizzle, you know, green geysers in maps, like 3 times in a row. That was either a bug or a feature. And now the developers have fixed this, and you should get the storm blue and the clearance yellow geysers just as much as the green drizzle geysers. So that's another indirect buff to the clay pit. Anyways, I don't really like the paste. I'm not convinced on the resin and the dye changes, though it's definitely a positive, or it's a move towards the right direction. Okay. There's a bunch of stuff I don't want to mention because they're kind of small, and I don't really want to spend 2 hours talking about this. You wouldn't probably click on the video if it was like longer than 40 minutes anyways. Obviously frogs and fishing, cornerstones, buffs, +2 to gathering and whatnot. Buildings were changed, but there isn't really anything significant. Like if a building lost a recipe, another building gained it, if that makes sense. Service buildings got changed. We talked about the clan hall, but what's really powerful change, I think, is that the guild house lost the 1-person buff. The Holy Guild House gained it. I guess this is a special building that you can only get on some maps, which was insane. Traders arrive 50% quicker. Now has been lost. It did gain the education service, but Guild Houses still cost 40 wood, and they are still probably the most insane building in the game. Well, not so much anymore. Like, it was a major thing that it lost, because you could just win with this guild house. Also, beaver specific, in case you didn't know, because if you couldn't complete your orders, you couldn't really satisfy your villagers, you could just win with trading. Just produce something and trade, and just get global resolve and win with the guild house. Not so easy anymore, which is a good change in my opinion. I kind of wish they nerfed farms as much as the trading though. Final section of the video, some UI and quality of life changes. You can now move houses for free. This is awesome, not just for decoration's sake. You can move houses between new hearths, and it's kind of a min-maxy thing, but you can craft houses in front of the warehouse, craft them faster, and then move them for free. It's actually more powerful of a change than it at first seems. Builders can also take resources from crafting buildings. So if you are building something at the edge of the map and there's a crafting building next to it or something, they don't have to go back to the warehouse. So maybe two-siders can now complete those annoying timed orders. Again, a bunch of UI changes, but I want to pick out the most important ones for you to not waste your time. Glade events can now be seen in the encyclopedia. You do have to encounter them again because they are not unlocked retroactively. You can now disable, or you can now ignore Blightrot cysts, which is useful, and you can also do it if you press Z. You see the Blightrot overlay. You can click on this warehouse lock thing and disable destroying the Blightrot cysts on that building specifically. The reason why that's important is because you have like cornerstones like alarm bells, which benefit from multiple Blightrots. So now you can control it better how many Blightrots you actually want to burn or keep. Again, like a bunch of other UI changes, warehouse locks don't carry over to other settlements automatically or something like that. But one thing I picked up on that is important, I've done it, you've probably done it. You know, when you create a farm and you accidentally forget to disable vegetables, for instance, at the small farm, you only want grain, and you just kind of late in the season disable it, so you can only produce grain next year. Well, now, if you disable something on a farm, the workers will also not gather it. So don't disable like vegetables or whatever in the clearance season if your workers did a few vegetables, because then they won't gather it up. I don't really like this change, to be honest. So yeah, this has been Two-Siders. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, check out my channel, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye.